The family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto, and it doesn't really hold.
There's a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining.
They didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
5 years, 2 books, thousands of hours of research inside the most guarded family on Earth. And now, Tom Bower has said the one sentence nobody expected from him. It's over. Not struggling, not under pressure, over.
You said off camera, and I hope it's okay that I'm repeating this, Prince Harry is done. Can you expand on that?
For Harry now, it's downhill faster than he can imagine.
The man who spent half a decade being told he'd gone too far just laid out 15 separate reasons, back to back, for exactly why Harry and Meghan's story has run out of road. And reason one alone explains where the money actually went. The Hollywood money never came. The plan, when they left, was simple on paper. Trade the palace for Hollywood. Keep the fame, lose the rules, and let the studios foot the bill. For a moment, it looked like it might actually work. The Netflix deal and the Spotify deal both carried numbers big enough to make headlines on both sides of the Atlantic. And by 2020, people in Los Angeles were seriously talking about this couple as the foundation of a production empire. Then Spotify ended after 1 season and 12 episodes. The Netflix relationship cooled into something far smaller than what had been announced.
Well, her and Harry had a $20 million deal with Spotify to put out material, but apparently due to failing to meet the productivity benchmarks, lazy, they have failed to renew it for a 2nd season.
And the word that started following them around in industry conversations wasn't royal, it was grifters. Bower's red is blunt. There was nothing distinctive underneath the brand, nothing that couldn't be found anywhere else, no format that survived contact with a 2nd season. For 2 people who remain undeniably global celebrities, that's the part he finds almost fascinating. How much damage global fame can do when there's nothing else propping it up. The deals were never just income either. They were proof that leaving had worked, evidence that you could walk away from a 1,000-year-old institution and land somewhere better. When the deals collapsed, that evidence collapsed with them. Nothing to sell but themselves. Every entertainer eventually gets asked the same question. What else have you got? Bower's answer is the harshest line in the whole interview. There was never a 2nd act. No writing, no producing, no craft that stood on its own, separate from the name one was born with and the other married into. What they had was the story of leaving, told again, reformatted, resold.
But the Sussexes are using it for their own promotion. And that is what's so naughty, because in the end, of course, Alison Boshoff was right. They are looking for a new brand.
They're trying to separate their brands.
Well, they're desperate.
Oprah was the first telling. Spare was the second. Netflix was the third. By the 4th pass, audiences already knew how it ended. Combine a lack of distinctive talent with an inflated sense of importance, Bower argues, and you get something fatal specifically in Hollywood. That town will tolerate almost any personality flaw. Difficult, expensive, unreliable, all forgivable. It will not keep paying people who can't reliably bring an audience. The irony he keeps returning to, the couple who insisted on being judged on merit rather than title ran into the one industry that actually took them at their word. Bower's suggestion is that a more modest path was available, a handful of high-profile appearances a year, Harry trading on the goodwill he'd already earned, and that it would have added up to a comfortable, sustainable life. Instead, in his phrasing, there were strategic errors made by people who assumed they could profit from the title without ever paying its dues. The legal bill. Harry has spent years in British courtrooms, and while some of that litigation may have been principled, all of it has been expensive. British law often means the loser pays both sides' costs, and the case against the Mail's publisher went against him. Bower puts the total cost at somewhere north of £50 million. But money isn't what worries him most here. His real warning is reputational. If the losses keep stacking up, Harry risks being remembered not as a man who lost a lawsuit, but as a man whose evidence in court wasn't reliable. and Bauer reaches for a deliberately loaded comparison. Andrew, not about conduct, but about institutional behavior. The monarchy has already shown, in full public view, that it will cut a son loose the moment his presence becomes a liability the institution can no longer carry.
Tonight, the gilded life of the man formerly known as Prince Andrew is over. He will now only be Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, the lowest ebb of his extraordinary fall. It follows an unprecedented intervention from the King, removing titles and kicking his brother out of his Windsor mansion.
Everyone watched that happen. And the man who watched it closest is now facing his own reputational reckoning in the same courts. Bauer's suggestion, Charles's cleanest move now is full distance, made unmistakably clear, leaving Harry to work out on his own how he reorganizes the next several decades of his life. Invictus is losing its backers. Whatever else gets said about Harry, Invictus is real. Wounded servicemen and women competing, rebuilding, finding. Purpose on the other side of catastrophic injury. It's his most defensible achievement, and almost nobody disputes that. But sponsors are getting harder to lock down, and Bauer's explanation is coldly corporate. A sponsor writes a check for goodwill, full stop. The moment that goodwill gets complicated, the calculation changes, and companies rarely announce a withdrawal. They just quietly decline to renew. Bauer describes the games approaching, with sponsors thinning out, and the budget getting harder to secure, while the athletes, who did nothing to deserve any of this, absorbed the cost of a reputation problem that was never theirs. By some accounts, competitors have had to cover their own travel, housing, and equipment for past games, while the couple collected the applause and the standing ovations. Bauer's blunter framing is that the competition has fallen into the hands of someone who uses it to promote herself, and that once she leaves the venue, public interest in the games themselves drops close to zero. Montecito doesn't come cheap. A house like that isn't a purchase, it's a subscription. Security, staff, grounds, insurance, and California property taxes alone that could rival an average mortgage. Bauer's rough math: security runs $1 to $2 million a year, upkeep and staff another $2 million on top of that, and total annual outlay sits around $3 million, against income that would need to hit $4 or $5 million just to break even. Speaking fees and scattered endorsements don't come close to closing that gap. His conclusion is blunt. They are running out of money because they are running out of people willing to pay for their story. He points to one detail about the property that says more than any figure could.
They are so broke. Financially, the couple are a laughingstock in Montecito. A really good example of how financially challenged they are. It's almost unheard of to buy a house in Montecito and just move into it, right? You buy a house and you do like a $7 million remodeling job.
In that neighborhood, it's almost unheard of to buy a house and simply move in without spending millions more on a remodel first. They moved in as is. In Montecito, that isn't a style choice. It's what people do when the money has a limit, and it's the kind of detail that tells you more about the state of their finances than any leaked number ever could. The return that can't happen. Bauer believes there is an attempt underway to come back, not to royal duties, but to royal proximity. Close enough to be photographed at the right events, close enough to matter again, close enough to be bookable. 2 words sum it up for him: desperation and failure. They've run out of ideas, run out of streamers willing to renew a deal, and run out of runway financially. But there's exactly one price on that door: an apology. And he is emphatic it will never be paid, because an apology doesn't just cost pride. It confirms that Oprah was wrong, that Spare was wrong, that 5 years of telling the world they were the wrong party was a mistake from the beginning. That's a story they can't afford to unwind. Harry has said he'd only return if the family publicly apologized to him and to Meghan, and no such apology has come from either direction, so the door stays shut, and Bauer doesn't expect it to open anytime soon. Archewell's paperwork problem. The foundation launched with genuine ambition, then California declared it delinquent, legally barred from raising or spending charitable money. The cause looks administrative on the surface, but Bauer's argument was never really about the paperwork. It's about what the paperwork revealed an organization built more for appearances than for durable impact. The kind of oversight failure that doesn't happen to a foundation with a properly staffed back office. Leaked details reportedly show a handful of large donors, one gift around 15 million, another around 3 million, against public fundraising numbers in the low thousands. And there's been speculation about whether some of that money traces back to the original Oprah interview. What stands out to Bauer isn't the scale of the big checks, it's how little the public itself has chosen to give. And when the couple does have a camera in front of them, he notes, they're rarely promoting the charity itself. More often they're relitigating something that happened years earlier. He lost Sentebale. Sentebale was Harry's charity in the fullest sense. Founded in his mother's memory, built around children in Lesotho affected by HIV, 20 years of sustained personal involvement. He is no longer part of it after a very public dispute with the charity's chair and board that ended in a Charity Commission investigation.
Really, what Prince Harry wanted to do was to eject me from the organization, and this went on for months. It went on for months through bullying, harassment. I have documentation.
Set aside who was right. Bauer's point is the pattern. Sentebale, then the Invictus sponsors, then the Archewell donors. 3 organizations, 3 countries, 3 separate leadership teams, one common thread. His conclusion is that Harry's public value has been in steady decline, and the people who once wanted his name attached to their work are quietly deciding they'd rather it wasn't. If you're keeping count, that's 3 institutions in a row that couldn't survive contact with them. And there are still 7 reasons to go, including the one Bauer calls unforgivable in that family. If this kind of detail is new to you, that's exactly why it's worth subscribing before the next one drops, because Bauer doesn't repeat himself in interviews, and neither will this channel. The bridges are gone. Family rifts usually heal with time. Bauer doesn't believe this one heals because Spare put a brother in print, in detail, permanently. There's no future version of this story where the book doesn't exist, and no conversation between the 2 men that doesn't have it sitting in the room. William has never responded publicly, not once. And in that family, silence isn't the absence of feeling, it's a decision. Bauer's summary is that the royal family won the public battle, but nobody actually won. A public war between a king's 2 sons damages the institution, regardless of who comes out ahead. And he isn't celebrating that. He's cataloging the cost of it. He's said plainly that he doesn't care what the couple say about him personally. What he cares about is the damage they've caused, and he says so.
I think it's terrible for him to reveal his difficulties and unhappiness in public like this.
His second book, he's noted, exists precisely because the years since the first one turned out to be so extraordinary that the story demanded a sequel. The privacy story collapsed under its own weight. They left by their own account for privacy. And what followed was a globally watched interview, a documentary series, a best-selling memoir, and years of further interviews about how hard it is to be left alone. Bauer's assessment is simple. They said they wanted distance from the family and achieved the precise opposite. The goodwill that followed the 2021 interview was real, but it wasn't permanent. Sympathy gets spent by resolution. People feel for someone, watch them move past what hurt them, and the story closes. What audiences got instead was the same grievance in a new format, year after year. And unrenewed sympathy doesn't turn into anger. It turns into something worse for anyone whose income depends on public attention. Indifference. Even the palace noticed the shift. Charles and William simply stopped responding to claims, and the story started dying within a day because one person talking isn't a feud. An editor can stretch across a week. There's no one left who knew him before. Harry grew up surrounded. Army friends who didn't care about his surname, old schoolmates, cousins, staff who'd known him since childhood. Most of those connections are gone now, some through distance, some through choice, some because the memoir made being his friend expensive. Bauer's read is that Harry moved to a town full of celebrities. In Britain, he was singular. In California, he's one famous face among many at every party.
Another town full of celebrities. Here, he was somebody, and there is just another celebrity. In my view, He's the loser, big time.
Reports keep surfacing that he misses home. At 41, he's living thousands of miles from nearly everyone who knew him before the rest of the world did. And every public move now draws more coverage of the controversy than of whatever he came to do, which only widens the distance between the man he was and the version now being written about. The monarchy was fine without them. Here's the outcome nobody quite predicted. The institution absorbed the departure and carried on. Charles took the throne. William stepped forward. Catherine returned from serious illness to enormous public warmth. The tours happened. The Christmases at Sandringham happened. And the photographs looked exactly the same without them in the frame. Nothing broke. Bower's closing judgment is the coldest line in the whole conversation. Instead of being remembered for what they contributed to the institution, Harry and Meghan will be remembered almost entirely for their conflict with it. Not the work, the war. And underneath that sits the point Bower has circled for 5 years and 2 books. Harry's greatest asset was always simply being Prince Harry. That title opened every decker he's ever walked through, including the ones in California. Strip it away, and by Bower's account, there's no independent identity underneath it. The recognition still runs entirely on the name. Every attempt to build something separate from it, the streaming deals, the foundation, the speaking circuit, has ended up circling back to the same well-worn story of leaving, told one more time, to a smaller audience than the time before. So, that's where things stand. Too far outside the family to be royal, too dependent on the name to be anything else on their own. Bower isn't saying it's over today. He's saying there's no version of the next 10 years that improves without the one thing neither of them appears willing to do. And every year that passes without, it makes the eventual reckoning harder to walk back from.
And what is really annoying is that we shouldn't have to in any way admire what they're doing in Dusseldorf, because they have wrecked with all their lies. The lies on Oprah Winfrey, the lies in Spare, the lies that Harry said in his interviews about his father and his brother. And he comes to England, makes no attempt to visit his father or brother, makes no attempt to apologize for his past behavior. Meghan carries on her lies and all the rest of it. And it really is shocking.
If you want the next update on this, the moment it breaks, subscribing is the only way you'll see it before it's everywhere else. So, here's the question worth arguing about in the comments. If they walked back into Britain tomorrow and apologized properly, would the public actually take them back? Or is Tom Bower right that it's simply too late for that too?